This is the monument of Thomas Sumter, the fighting gamecock, an American patriot. I think he was the last Revolutionary War general to die. He was a guerrilla fighter who would harass the troops, the British troops. And this is the crypt, the monument to Thomas Sumter's daughter-in-law. She was born in France, married Thomas Sumter Jr. An interesting story about Natalie and Thomas Sumter Jr. They met on a ship on the way to Paris, France. She was from Paris. Her mom had definite ideals about who she should marry. Her mom was a bridesmaid from Marie Antoinette, as I understand it, and wanted her to marry a good Catholic of good upbringing, with lots of money and high social standing. And Thomas Sumter Jr. was none of that, and as a matter of fact married Natalie and took her to the backwoods of South Carolina. This is the Oakland Plantation. This plantation was established in 1735 with a royal grant to William Sanders, who built a house and tavern or public house here. That house was either extensively remodeled into or replaced by the present house, featuring a central hall built about 1816 by William Sanders IV and further enlarged by his son William Sanders V shortly before the Civil War. So this is the Oakland Plantation. This is the old Garner's Ferry Road. This used to be the road that you would have to take to get from Columbia to Sumter. By the way, this is the horse that I'm riding. These old roads these old colonial roads. This is the Lenore store. It has been in continuous operation by the same family since before 1808. That would mean that it's a little bit over 200 years old. And how do you like that old gas pump? By the way, it is a continuous operation store. I bought me a A&W root beer while I was here. And there's the historical marker somewhere. Yeah, there it is. How about that, since before 1808. This is apparently the family plot of William Ellison. William Ellison was a slave that bought his freedom and started a cotton gin and got pretty wealthy off of it. Mr. Ellison was born in 1819 and then died in 1904. And the reason why it was called the old Kings Highway, because it was the way from Charleston up through the back country of South Carolina. And this is the view of the cemetery from Old Garner's Ferry Road. And by the way, that is Garner's Ferry Road right there. I'm almost at 261, which is behind me. What you're looking at is as if you were going to Columbia. This was the house of Samuel Maverick, who was a staunch patriot. This house was there at least since the late 1700s. Mr. Maverick moved from here, moved on to Texas, and became a very, very wealthy landowner in Texas, even though he didn't do bad here neither. The name Maverick, which basically means like an independent thinking type of person, come from this gentleman, from something he was involved in, even though I don't know the details. This was the office of Dr. W. W. Anderson Jr. and Sr. This was built in the year 1800, and then when W. W. Anderson Jr. passed away in 1901, I think it was, that was the last the office was used. So this building is about 210 years old, and this is at the entrance to the Burroughs House Plantation. And that is the entrance right there to the Burroughs House Plantation. Church of the Holy Cross, built in 1850. The church itself, not the building, but the congregation, was established in, I think, 1700. This land was donated by General Thomas Sumter, and its surrounding graveyard has many notable South Carolina people, including Poinsett for whom the flower, the poinsettia flower, is named after. This is made out of what they call rammed earth. My understanding is they would build forms, drop clay dirt into it, ram it, and build the forms on up. The walls are 2 feet thick. Honestly speaking, I don't know who this guy is. I just love these old tombstones. Here lies the remains of Dr. E. Haskell, who died the 4th of September 1816. In the 38th year of his age, a native of Massachusetts, but for about 10 years a resident of Stateburg, which is this area here is the Stateburg area. This is the McLaurin House. I think it was built in the 1840s, I'm not sure. It is still run by the McLaurins. They still run a farm, and I think it's a Brigadier General McLaurin that has it now. This is again the McLaurin home. This is from the front. This is High Hills Baptist Church, built in 1804. The sanctuary the church was established before then, but the sanctuary was built in 1804. This is one of those old churches that is almost completely surrounded by its members, I guess you could say, in the form of a graveyard. Just as a side note, in this graveyard at High Hills, looks like an 11-year-old girl, a 16-year-old, and a 3-year-old, and the mother all died the same year but at different dates in 1831. Okay, I'm on the inside of High Hills Baptist Church. I was fortunate enough that while I was outside, a gentleman come up that has a key here and was very kind to let me come in. And that picture there is Richard Furman, who, as I understand it, was converted as a 16-year-old child and become a pastor here later on. And Furman University was named after him. It's actually started not too far from here and then moved up to where it's at now. This is William Marion Sanders, who he helped to build this church, who died. He was from 1822 to 1853, and right after this church was completed, he was in an accident with his carriage and ended up losing his arm. And as I understand it, his arm is buried out here, actually. I don't know if you can see it through this camera or not, but under this rock is where he buried his arm. And shortly thereafter, he died, and he's buried here. I just thought that was a neat story. Do you know what that is? I'll give you a hint. They've not always had plumbing. Not sure how good you can see this. This is the oldest tombstone in the High Hills Baptist Church yard. It's, if I can make it out, it says sacred to the memory of Sarah T. Polk. I think it says died January 1816. That'd be right. This is the oldest stone here, aged 4 years and 2 months, the parents' last gift. This is the Church of the Ascension Episcopal Church. The Church of the Ascension became an organized parish June 30th, 1895. The building built entirely of pine cut from the land of William C.S. Ellerby. Was consecrated March 8th, 1896. It rests on land purchased from William Sanders in 1807 for use as a cemetery by the Shallow Burying Association. The name Ascension was thought appropriate since this was built on land built for burying people, a graveyard.